Warning, this video is intended for adult collectors. It contains plastic collectibles, questionable opinions, and someone that's given too much money to Hasbro. Do not panic. This is just a random review.
Before we begin, thank you very much to... Okay, so this one comes with like a voice direction thing, which is Dinobot voice. I can't do a Dinobot voice, so pretend it's a Dinobot voice saying, "I am a patron. The channel be joined." I appreciate you trying to put in something goofy, but impersonation is not what I do. It was funny, though. Okay, so, yep. Still away from Metro, so yeah, we're still doing reviews. So let's see what I have to say about Devcon. Day 2 of reviewing while I'm away at MetroCon, and today we are covering a somewhat improbable release, but these days, since Hasbro is trying to reach just about everything in Generation 1 they haven't touched on before, it doesn't really come as a surprise that they would actually make a toy out of an Autobot who only appeared in the cartoon, had practically an entire episode dedicated to him, and yet has never gotten an official toy release at mass retail until now. So, let us see how Devcon turned out and see if it was actually worth waiting almost 4 decades for the character to finally debut on a toy shelf. As you can see, he is doing his best impersonation of a Cybertronian spaceship, looking pretty nice in that regard. So, I went and double-checked to see what he looked like in the episode itself, and he's actually pretty accurate. So I assumed that this very obvious arms pinned to side was just going to be a just a like a cheap thing, like just like a leftover of engineering or something that didn't really fit in. No, that's how the ship looked in the show. That's accurate to his animation model. It should be a little bit longer so the thrusters reach the back of him, but that's really it. Everything else on him is perfectly fine. Like, that looks correct. I will admit that where you can actually see his belly and his midriff, that's not correct. That's something that was necessary due to how the toy is engineered. I mean, I could have seen a little bit of extra shell that could have folded over either onto what will be the legs or what will be the backside. I could see like something. I could see something there, but unfortunately, it is what it is. It's still okay. It still looks pretty good considering what it is, and what it is an extremely heavily retooled Blur from Studio Series, and that is actually a pretty good toy. And we've seen in the past with things like Titan's Return Brainstorm, you can make Blur into some pretty convincing versions of other characters. It's a pretty versatile body shape overall. So we have him here cast in his primary blue color. Looks very nice. Not quite the same blues that Blur would use, so we can get away with it a little bit, and it doesn't really feel or seem like a Blur unless you get into like very specific elements of it. He is decoed with some nice bit of silver. If we go in a little bit closer, we can spy that cannon on the nose cone done up in the silver paint. His handgun is currently pegged to the underside, which I can go ahead and remove now. We'll set aside until we get into the vehicle mode, or the robot mode rather. Here on top, we've got 2 different portions where you can see his midsection design with the 4 red lines and the silver painting underneath for detail. A little bit of red on the underside for these extra little stabilizer wings. The thrusters here in the back completely painted over in red to be accurate to the show. The nice thing about this is that since we're imitating the original depiction from the cartoon, the design details are far simpler. So even with a thinner paint budget than toys used to get, this still manages to hit just about every point of accuracy that the vehicle possibly could. And aside from just the paint being correct, there's lots of little tech lines and greeble here. Look at that. Look at how much added detail went into the top of that. Almost like an engine exposed on the back. It's a lot of detail here. He looks pretty cool. Now, the downside to something like this is that he is just kind of a nothing of a vehicle. If you know how he looked in the original G1 cartoon, that's fine. But I can imagine that a kid seeing this on a toy shelf might be just a little bit bored of what he turns into, you know? Like, at least with like a sweep, like a Scourge toy, At least that looks like some like ultra high-tech space shuttle thing. And this does too, in a sense, but it also just kind of looks like a robot folded up when you look at it from the wrong angle. So this might not be a kid's favorite toy, but it's definitely something fans are going to resonate with because it's a pretty obscure pull. So, if you want to arm up the spaceship any more than this, you've got 5mm posts here. You can also put them here for blast effects. You have 2 more here on the underside, and if you want to flight mount him, not only do you have the 3mm here, but also one buried in the back over there. Plenty of places where you could actually put him on a flight stand for any added posing purposes. Also, these are 5mm attached, so if you want to relocate them and kind of customize your own ship design a little bit, or swap these around so you can have like heavy weapon armaments on top, that is perfectly viable. I kind of like the wider base that this presents rather than the taller one of the natural positioning, but that's just me. You put them wherever you want. It's your toy. You have fun with it your way. All right. So we're going to set those aside. We're going to take this like flat blue bullet of a vehicle mode. We're going to transform it now. And if you know your Blur, this is going to feel a little bit familiar. All right. So I'm going to start by disengaging the arms and popping them off of those tabs. All right. So nothing really out of the normal there. Let's go ahead and flip all of this around. I'm going to leave this open just now so we can get at everything that makes up the legs. And then we'll go ahead, since we've already started with the arms, we might as well start flipping a few extra bits out here. Open up the panels, rotate the thrusters around, and that's going to give you the fists, like so. Go ahead and straighten those out. Make sure the thumbs are in the correct orientation. The wings should be on the inside of his arms. All right, now we get to the legs themselves. Go ahead and open them up like so. These big panels fold out like that. Split open, and then make sure that these hinge correctly all the way down. It's actually it doesn't look like a double hinge, but it is. And you're gonna have to make sure that you work both sides in order to get it to go all the way down as needed. I'm gonna go ahead and close up and bring the feet in like so. Make sure all that goes together nice and tight. All right, so pretty much done here. From that, just fold all of this together. I'm going to go ahead and fold that panel back. Click all of that front of the spaceship in like so. And there we go. That is going to be our Devcon in robot mode. So, because the engineering has been so radically changed from Blur, it still feels similar in some elements of the transformation. You know, things like, especially things like the legs, obviously still feel the same. But he's using a lot of his bulk a little bit differently, and even though the engineering is the same, it doesn't feel like the same toy. It doesn't feel like how Blur felt. So you do get a different experience out of it, even if you've already experienced the toy before in its original incarnation. So I always like engineering jobs like that, where you can just take good engineering, let another figure borrow it, and it still feels okay. And honestly, it's hard to argue results. I mean, that's Devcon. That is just straight up spot on Devcon. It's a fantastic job of recreating the Autobot from his one appearance in the original cartoon. Yeah, and looking very, very good. As always with these reviews, we are going to start with a close-up look of the head. The swoop, I keep doing the same thing. Seeker, swoop, no, sweep, scourge, thank you. I've been doing a lot of recording today. So I can see, like, where like, I pulled that Scourge comparison from. It's a somewhat ironically familiar head. Now, of course, it is also a fluoro-dairy design, similar to Scourge, so the fact that some of those elements are not, it's not a surprise they peeked through. But it's a nice little head sculpt. It definitely suits the character. Looks just like him. Can't really complain there. Definitely keeps that unique art style that Fluoro was known for. Yeah, and then I love all these little I love these little chest details too. Yeah, it's just very much in line with how he looked in the cartoon. You know, if we want to go across the body itself, we can see where the midsection is now. Hard to get vertical abs like that, You know, that's a very different type of exercise machine, but hey, congratulations, he managed to do it. Beyond that, silver on the biceps looks really good. Yeah, he's got his big red boots. The big red boots do the talking. All right, so that's working. And to be honest, like Devcon, because he is solely a creation of the cartoon and not really designed to ever be a toy, is a little bit dull in presentation. You know, I could use a little bit more of the red on the upper body, but he definitely at least stands out as unique. Oh, and fortunately, we can fix that if I actually want to give him some adjustments. Now, there's a few places this can mount. You can just like mount it right back onto the rear of the legs. You know, that seems to be the natural position for them. But the toy has plenty of options for you if you want to put anything else 5mm on him. So aside from those two ports, the ports on the underside are still there. You've still got the hands, of course, the two on the sides. We've also gained these two on the back, which means if I actually want to plug these on and actually make a jetpack out of it, that is absolutely something to do now. It does stick out by a mile, but you can actually give him that capability if you were so choose. So I really like little display options like that. And there's so many 5mm ports on him. Really does help there. We can kind of like add to his silhouette here a little bit if we actually use the shoulder ones. And these could be just shoulder cannons if you want. They could be just little pylons for decoration. Your toy. You do what you want. So I just kind of like having a little bit more detail going on there. All right, so articulation roundup. How did the articulation turn out? Big shock. He shares the articulation with Blur. So yeah, pretty much what you get. You get a little bit of up and down, not a whole lot, but it is ball jointed, so it's capable. 360 rotation though. Full universal shoulders. Admittedly, my cannons now get in the way, but very easy, very easy to fix. No problem there. I also mentioned that there are 3mm pegs on the backside of the cannons too, if you want to have blast effects attached there. Full rotation there at the bicep, 90-degree elbow. We got the waist rotation that works all the way around. Hips are universally jointed. Everything works out there. He's got one of those weird buried thigh swivels. So it's not a full 360 rotation around, but it should do everything you need it to. 90-degree at the knee, ankle tilt as well. That's all the articulation we kind of expect with a Transformer these days, so no real shock there. He is not a slouch when it comes to the articulation. He can do just about everything he could in the original show and more. And if we want, yes, he does come with a blaster. The blaster itself also has the 3mm on the front and the 5mm ports on the side, so you can also upgrade that. If you want to Evo Fusion him, phrase is disgusting, but it exists. You can also attach his big blasters, or his big thrusters, to make a big blaster. So you have more play options, and I like play options. So there we go. That is what you get with your Generations Legacy Evolution Devcon. Yeah, the toy was a long time coming. He does suffer from the fact that he was designed specifically for the cartoon, so his detailing and his color scheme is not quite up to par. It's not going to be interesting to everyone. Frankly, to a lot, he's probably going to be on the generic side. But if you grew up with the character, or if you're just waiting for him to finally have his turn at the toy aisle, it is a decent figure. Covers just about everything the toy could possibly cover. And aside from a very minor problem with the vehicle mode and how exposed some of his robot bits are, everything seems perfectly fine with him. If you liked the design and the engineering of the Blur mold, you're going to enjoy Devcon. It's the same, but hey, sometimes it's not bad to have the same flavor twice.
I'm like, I think you guys got this. I will back away, and I will see you all later.
You've got this handled.
Alafi's like, really? You're not gonna help me? Like, it's fine now.
It's like these disgusting creatures breathing down my neck, and you're all just like, I believe in you. You got this.
All right, you seem to have this. 5 minutes.